Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The room stretched out before him like a metal canyon, filled with floating platforms that held the representatives of 12 different alien species. Each platform glowed with a different color, matching the homeworlds of the creatures that sat upon them. Jake had been standing here for 3 hours now, listening to the same arguments he had heard for the past 5 years. The Velkari, tall and thin like walking silver trees, spoke in their musical voices about peace and understanding. The Threks, looking like giant beetles with their shiny black shells, clicked and buzzed about trade profits. The gas-breathing Nefri floated in their sealed tanks, their tentacles waving as they discussed mining rights in distant star systems. All of them had one thing in common. They all expected humans to do the fighting and dying while they sat safely, in their council chambers making plans and counting money. Jake's communication device buzzed softly against his chest. He touched it with one finger, and Admiral Lisa Grant's voice whispered in his ear through the tiny speaker. "How bad is it today?" she asked. "Same as always," Jake whispered back, barely moving his lips. "They want us to send more ships to the outer rim. Pirates are hitting Threx cargo vessels again. How many ships do they want this time? 50, maybe more." There was silence from Lisa for a moment. Jake knew she was thinking about the numbers just like he was. 50 ships meant 3,000 human sailors and marines. The last time they had sent that many ships to fight pirates, 800 humans had died. The Threx had sent a simple message saying thank you and asking when the next patrol would begin. Captain Morrison called out Councillor HFY, the leader of the Velkari delegation. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but Jake had learned to hear the cold calculation behind the pretty sounds. "Do you have an answer for the council's request?" Jake looked up at the silver figure on the floating platform. HFY was old, even by Velkari standards. His body was so thin it looked like it might break in a strong wind, but his eyes glowed with ancient intelligence. Those eyes had watched humans die for 30 years without showing even a hint of sadness. "The human fleet is stretched thin across 47 star systems," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Our ships are fighting pirates, rebels, and criminals from the core worlds to the far reaches. We have lost over 50,000 sailors and marines in the past 5 years alone." "Yes, yes," buzzed Corex Prime, the lead Threx representative. His voice came through the translation system sounding like an angry wasp. "Human casualties are regrettable, but the trade routes must be protected. Our economy depends on it." "Your economy," Jake repeated slowly. "What about our economy? What about our people?" The chamber fell silent. Jake could hear the soft humming of the air recyclers and the distant sound of ships docking at the station's ports. Several of the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. "Humans are well compensated for their military service," said Councillor Yethnor of the crystalline Luxari. Her voice sounded like breaking glass, sharp and cutting. "Your species receives full access to council trade networks and technology. Technology you developed using human-discovered materials," Jake shot back. "Trade networks we keep safe with human blood." "Captain Morrison," HFY's voice had an edge to it now. "You seem to forget your place in this council. Humans are valued members of our alliance, but you must remember that each species contributes according to their natural abilities." Jake felt something cold and hard settle in his stomach. Natural abilities? Indeed. The Velkari contribute wisdom and philosophical guidance. The Threx manage commerce and trade. The Nefri provide industrial expertise. Humans are naturally suited for combat and security operations. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Jake had heard hints of this attitude for years, but never stated so clearly. He touched his communication device again. "Lisa, are you hearing this?" "Every word," came the quiet reply. "Recording everything." "I see," Jake said aloud. "So humans are naturally suited for dying so other species can live comfortably." "That is a crude way to put it," HFY replied, but he did not deny it. "Each species has evolved certain traits. Humans have proven exceptionally capable at warfare and violence. It would be wasteful not to utilize these strengths." Jake looked, around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Some of them looked uncomfortable with HFY's words, but none of them spoke up to disagree. The younger species, those who had joined the council more recently, seemed especially troubled. But the older, more powerful species nodded in agreement. "Captain," said Corex Prime, "we are wasting time with this discussion. Will Earth provide the requested ships or not?" Before Jake could answer, another voice echoed through the chamber. "Actually, I think we need to discuss this matter further." The speaker was Commander Ryan Clark, the youngest human representative on the council. He was only 35 years old, but his family had been sending people to die in council conflicts for 3 generations. "There is nothing to discuss," HFY said firmly. "The matter is settled. Humans will provide security. Other species will handle the more complex aspects of governance and development." Ryan stood up from the human platform, his young face hard with anger. "More complex aspects? Like what? Like the faster-than-light engines that human scientists developed? Like the terraforming techniques that turned dead rocks into garden worlds? Like the medical advances that have saved millions of alien lives? Human technological contributions are noted and appreciated," said Yethnor coldly. "But surely you understand that military races cannot be trusted with the truly important decisions of civilization." "Military races," Jake repeated. "Yes. Species that have evolved primarily for warfare and aggression cannot be expected to understand the subtleties of diplomacy, art, science, or philosophy." Jake felt the last of his patience drain away. Behind him, he could hear Ryan breathing hard with barely controlled rage. In his ear, Lisa's voice was steady, but deadly quiet. "Jake, I think it's time." "Time for what?" Jake asked. "Time to show them what happens when the guard dogs go home." In the council chamber, HFY was still talking. "Therefore, the council has prepared Resolution 2847, which will formally recognize the role of each species in our alliance." A holographic document appeared in the center of the chamber, with text written in dozens of languages. Jake read the human translation with growing disbelief. The resolution classified humans as a specialized military subspecies with limited voting rights on scientific, cultural, and economic matters. Humans would be restricted to security and combat roles, with no voice in the decisions that shaped galactic civilization. "This resolution will be voted on immediately," HFY announced. "All in favor?" 8 platforms lit up with green lights indicating agreement. The older, more powerful species had all voted yes. 4 platforms glowed red, showing opposition from some of the younger species. The human platform remained dark. "Resolution 2847 passes by a clear majority," HFY declared. "Humans are hereby classified as a specialized military species, with roles and responsibilities limited to security and defense operations." Jake looked up at the silver figure on the floating platform. For 30 years, humans had bled and died to protect this alliance. They had given their lives to defend worlds they had never seen, to protect people who now declared them too primitive for anything but violence. "I see," Jake said quietly. Then he touched his communication device one more time. "Lisa, place a priority call to Earth. Tell President Carter we need to talk, tonight." The council chamber began to empty as the various species returned to their quarters. Jake and Ryan walked toward the exit in silence, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind them, alien voices chattered about trade schedules and security assignments, already taking human protection for granted. They had no idea that everything was about to change. 3 months had passed since Resolution 2847, and Captain Susan Bell stood on the command deck of Kepler Station, watching the final human transport ships dock with the massive military base. Through the thick metal windows, she could see the lights of alien vessels approaching from all directions. Word had spread quickly through council space that something big was happening at humanity's largest military installation outside the Sol system. "Captain, we have another incoming transmission from the Threx delegation," reported Lieutenant Gary Stone from his position at the communications console. "They're requesting immediate docking permission." Susan shook her head. "Tell them the same thing we told the others. Kepler Station is closed to non-human personnel until further notice." She turned back to watch the evacuation process. Cargo shuttles moved back and forth between the station and the transport ships like busy insects, carrying everything from weapons and ammunition to personal belongings and family photos. Every piece of human technology, every scrap of human knowledge, every trace of human presence was being methodically removed from the station. "Status report," Susan called out. "Weapon systems have been removed from all defense platforms," replied Commander Tony Richards, who was overseeing the technical side of the withdrawal. "Computer cores have been wiped clean and removed. All research data has been transferred to the transport ships. What about the reactor cores? Those will be the last things we take. Without them, the station will have emergency power only. Life support will fail within 72 hours. Susan nodded grimly. Kepler Station had been humanity's pride and joy. A massive fortress that could house 50,000 people and dock hundreds of warships. It had taken 12 years to build, and it cost more money than most planets saw in a decade. Now they were stripping it bare and abandoning it to the vacuum of space. "Captain Bell," came another voice from the communications station. This time it was Ensign Maria Santos, looking nervous. "We're getting priority calls from Admiral Grant. She wants to speak with you immediately." Susan walked over to the secure communication booth and activated the privacy screen. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on the screen, her expression serious but determined. "Susan, how's the evacuation proceeding?" "On schedule, Admiral. We should have everything stripped and ready for departure within 18 hours. "Good. I need you to know that the situation is developing faster than we expected. The Threx have lost 3 more colony worlds to pirate attacks in the past week. Their trade fleet was decimated near the Rigel system yesterday." Susan was not surprised. Without human patrol ships protecting the trade routes, the pirates had become bold and aggressive. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that Corex Prime himself is demanding an immediate meeting with our representatives. He's threatening to take the matter to the full council if we don't restore patrols immediately." "And what did we tell him?" Lisa smiled grimly. "We reminded him that according to Resolution 2847, humans are too simple-minded for complex decision-making. We suggested he consult with the Velkari about philosophical solutions to his pirate problem." Despite everything, Susan found herself smiling. "I bet he loved that." He was not pleased. "But Susan, there's something else. We're getting reports that some of the alien populations on the worlds we're abandoning are starting to panic. They've gotten used to having human protection, and now they're realizing what's about to happen." Susan looked out at the alien ships hovering near the station. There were dozens of them now from at least 6 different species. "They're trying to talk us out of leaving." "That's right, and it's not just here. Every human base, every human colony, every human research station is being visited by desperate alien diplomats. They're offering bribes, making threats, begging us to reconsider. What are our orders?" "The same as before. Complete withdrawal to Sol system. No exceptions, no negotiations, no compromises." The communication ended, and Susan returned to overseeing the evacuation. Around her, human officers and enlisted personnel worked with quiet efficiency. There was no panic, no shouting, no confusion. This was what humans did best. They adapted to impossible situations and found a way to accomplish their mission. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Stone again. "The Luxari ship is requesting permission to send a delegation aboard. They say it's a matter of urgent galactic security." "Denied. The Nefri are offering to purchase the station from us. They're willing to pay 50 million credits." "Also denied. The Velkari ship is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're saying this withdrawal violates our treaty obligations." Susan walked over to the communications console herself. "Put me on the general broadcast frequency. All ships in the area." "You're live, Captain." Susan keyed the microphone. "This is Captain Susan Bell of the Earth Defense Force, commanding officer of Kepler Station. To all alien vessels in this area, please be advised that humanity is exercising its right to withdraw from military commitments that are no longer in our best interests." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "For 30 years, human beings have served as the military arm of the Galactic Council. We have lost over 200,000 sailors, marines, and support personnel defending worlds that are not our own. In return, we have been classified as a subspecies suitable only for violence and warfare. The radio crackled with incoming transmissions, but Susan continued. Therefore, Earth has decided to recall all human military forces to the Sol system. We will no longer serve as the galaxy's police force, bodyguards, or attack dogs. Each species in the Council will now be responsible for its own defense. Captain Bell, came a new voice over the radio. It was smooth and musical, a Velkari. This is Counselor Jek Val speaking from the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Light. Surely you understand that this withdrawal will destabilize the entire galactic region. Susan keyed her microphone again. Counselor Jek Val, with respect, humanity was told that we lack the intelligence and sophistication to understand complex galactic politics. Therefore, we have decided to focus on what we do best, simple military matters within our own space. Captain, the Council is prepared to discuss modifications to Resolution 2847. Perhaps we were too hasty in our classifications. The time for discussion was 3 months ago before the resolution passed. Earth's decision is final. Susan cut the communication and turned back to her crew. How much longer until we're finished here? 14 hours, replied Commander Richards. The last of the computer cores are being removed now. The reactor shutdown sequence will begin in 10 hours. Susan nodded and walked back to the window. More alien ships had arrived, and she could see small shuttles moving between them. They were probably having frantic meetings, trying to figure out some way to convince the humans to stay. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Captain, said a new voice behind her. She turned to see Dr. Patricia Moore, the chief scientist who had been in charge of the research facilities on the station. I wanted to report that all human research data has been successfully removed from Council databases. All of it? Everything. Faster-than-light engine designs, terraforming techniques, medical research, weapons technology, defensive systems. It's all been wiped clean. Any research that was developed by human scientists or used human test subjects is gone. Susan felt a moment of satisfaction. The aliens had gotten used to having access to human innovation without having to do the work themselves. Now they would discover how much they had really depended on human creativity and ingenuity. What about the research stations and other systems? All of them are being evacuated and stripped clean. Dr. Kevin Park is overseeing the withdrawal from the Proxima Lab. Everything will be removed or destroyed. By the next morning, Kepler Station was a hollow shell. The lights were dim, the air was getting thin, and the massive docking bays that had once housed human warships stood empty and silent. Susan stood on the bridge of the transport ship Liberty, watching through the view screen as the station grew smaller behind them. Course laid in for Earth, Captain, reported the navigation officer. Take us home, Susan said quietly. Behind them, alien ships swarmed around the abandoned station like scavengers around a carcass. But there was nothing left for them to find. Humanity had taken everything that mattered and left only empty metal and broken dreams. The age of human service, too. The galactic community was over. Now the aliens would have to learn to take care of themselves. 2 years had passed since the Great Withdrawal, and Captain Jake Morrison sat in his new office on Mars, looking at reports that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The red planet hummed with activity below him, its domed cities, growing larger every month. What had once been humanity's backup world was now the center of an industrial revolution that was changing everything. Jake was no longer just a captain. The war-weary veteran now held the title of Director of Earth's Independent Defense Force, commanding fleets that protected not just human space, but a growing alliance of species who had chosen partnership over domination. The latest production reports are in, said Commander Ryan Clark, entering the office with a stack of data tablets. Ryan had also been promoted after the withdrawal, taking charge of human technological development. You're going to want to see these numbers. Jake took the tablet and started reading. His eyebrows rose higher with each line. These can't be right. Are we really producing twice as many ships as we were 2 years ago? Actually, it's closer to 3 times as many. And they're better ships, too. Without council regulations limiting our research, our engineers have been making breakthroughs every month. Jake leaned back in his chair. During the council years, humans had been restricted in what technologies they could develop. The alien species had claimed it was for safety reasons, to prevent humans from creating weapons that were too dangerous. Now Jake understood the real reason. They had been afraid of what humans might accomplish if given the freedom to innovate. What about Dr. Kevin Park's project, the new drive system? Ryan's face lit up with excitement. That's the best news of all. Kevin and his team at Lunar Research Station have perfected it. The new drive system makes council jump gates look like horse-drawn carts. How much faster? A ship using our new drive can travel from Earth to Alpha Centauri in 6 hours. The fastest council ship would need 3 days to make the same journey. Jake whistled softly. The implications were staggering. Human ships could now move through space faster than any other known species. Combined with their superior weapons and defensive systems, it made humanity effectively untouchable. Any word from the council territories? Ryan's expression darkened. It's not good, Jake. The Threx have lost 12 colony worlds to pirates in the past 6 months. The Luxari mining operations in the asteroid fields have shut down completely. They can't find anyone willing to work in those dangerous conditions, now that human engineers are gone. And the Velkari? Still pretending everything is fine. HFY released a statement last week saying that the Council is stronger than ever, and that humanity's withdrawal has allowed other species to step up and take on greater responsibilities. Jake shook his head. Through the window of his office, he could see human transport ships arriving from the outer colonies, their holds full of rare metals and exotic materials. The human settlements at Alpha Centauri had become completely self-sufficient, producing everything from food to starships. Wolf 359 was now home to the most advanced research facilities in known space. What about the requests for help? They keep coming. Individual species are bypassing the Council entirely, sending direct messages to Earth. The Zephyrians want to hire human mercenaries to protect their home system. The Aquari are offering massive trade deals if we'll patrol their shipping lanes. And our response? Same as always. We politely decline and remind them that according to Resolution 2847, humans are too primitive and violent to handle such complex responsibilities. Jake smiled grimly. It had become humanity's standard response to any request for military aid. The aliens had made their position clear. Humans were good for nothing but fighting and dying. So now, when they needed fighters, they were discovering that the fighters had better things to do. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Jake activated his communication screen and saw the face of President Helen Carter appearing from Earth. Jake, we have a situation developing. Are you alone? Ryan's here, but he has full clearance for operational matters. Good. We just received intelligence reports that concern me. The pirate fleets that have been terrorizing Council space aren't random raiders anymore. They're organizing into something much more dangerous. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How dangerous? Intelligence suggests they've formed a confederation of some kind. They're calling themselves the Crimson Fleet, and they have at least 300 ships under unified command. More importantly, they seem to have access to advanced technology, possibly captured human equipment from the bases we abandoned. Ryan leaned forward. Mr. President, how reliable is this intelligence? Very reliable. The information comes from refugees fleeing Council space. Entire star systems are being conquered and enslaved. The pirates aren't just raiding anymore, they're building an empire. Jake studied the star charts on his wall. If the pirates had really organized into a proper military force with captured human technology, they would be nearly unstoppable against the depleted Council fleets. What's the Council's response? President Carter's expression was grim. That's the interesting part. Officially, they're claiming they have the situation under control. Unofficially, we're getting desperate messages through back channels. Some of the Council species are starting to panic. Any direct requests for assistance? Not yet. But I suspect that's coming soon. The question is, what do we do when they ask? Jake thought about it carefully. Part of him felt sorry for the ordinary citizens of Council worlds who were suffering because of their leaders' arrogance. But another part of him remembered the casual way those same leaders had dismissed human sacrifice and classified his species as inherently inferior. We stick to our policy, Jake said finally. Humanity is no longer the galaxy's police force. Each species is responsible for its own defense. Even if the situation gets worse? Even then, we didn't ask to be withdrawn from galactic affairs. The Council forced us out by treating us like attack dogs instead of equal partners. If they want our help now, they need to admit they were wrong and offer us real partnership, not just pretty words. The communication ended, and Jake returned to his reports, but his mind kept drifting to the intelligence about the Crimson Fleet. 300 ships was a significant force, especially if they had human technology and training. The Council fleets, weakened by 2 years of constant pirate attacks and lacking human support, would be no match for such an enemy. Jake, Ryan said quietly, do you think we're doing the right thing? I mean, innocent people are dying out there. Jake looked at his young colleague. Ryan had lost a brother and 2 cousins during humanity's service to the Council. Like every human family, the Clarks had paid the price in blood for galactic peace. Ryan, how many humans died protecting Council worlds in the 30 years we served them? Over 200,000. And how many times did the Council acknowledge those sacrifices? How many times did they thank us or treat us as equal partners instead of expendable servants? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Never. That's right. Never. They took our service for granted, and our lives for granted. They classified us as a subspecies and restricted our development. They kept us weak and dependent while using us to fight their battles. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the thriving human cities on Mars. Now look at what we've accomplished in just 2 years of independence. We've tripled our industrial capacity, developed new technologies that make us the most advanced species in the galaxy, and built an alliance based on mutual respect instead of exploitation. But people are still dying. Yes, they are, and that's tragic. But they're not dying because humans are cruel or heartless. They're dying because their leaders chose to insult and dismiss the people who kept them safe for 3 decades. Jake turned back to Ryan. When the Council is ready to treat humanity as an equal partner, we'll listen to their requests. Until then, we have our own people and our own allies to protect. Outside the office windows, another convoy of human ships was departing for the outer colonies, their hulls gleaming with new armor and their engines powered by technology that no Council species could match. Humanity had turned its back on the galaxy, and the galaxy was finally learning what that really meant. The emergency alert woke Admiral Lisa Grant at 3 a.m, Earth time. She rolled out of bed in her quarters aboard Mars Defense Station and quickly dressed in her uniform. The red lights flashing in the corridor told her this was not a drill. "Admiral on deck," called out Lieutenant Gary Stone as Lisa entered the command center. The large room buzzed with activity as dozens of officers monitored screens showing star maps, ship movements, and communication intercepts from across the galaxy. "What's the situation?" Lisa asked, walking to the central command console. "Long-range sensors are picking up massive fleet movements in the former Council core systems," reported Commander Tony Richards. "It looks like the Crimson Fleet is making their biggest move yet." Lisa studied the tactical display. Red dots representing enemy ships were converging on a single star system, while blue dots showing Council defense forces were scattered and outnumbered. "Which system are they attacking?" "Velkari Prime, Admiral. The homeworld of the Velkari species." Lisa felt her blood run cold. Whatever she thought of Councillor Jek Val and his arrogant attitude, Velkari Prime was home to over 2 billion innocent people. The thought of that many civilians under attack made her stomach turn. "How many ships is the Crimson Fleet using?" "Our best estimate is over 400 vessels, Admiral. They've been growing fast over the past 6 months." "And the Velkari defenses?" Tony's expression was grim. "Maybe 50 ships, and most of those are old cargo vessels they've converted for military use. Their real defense fleet was destroyed 6 months ago trying to protect their outer colonies." Lisa watched the tactical display update in real time. The red dots were moving closer to Velkari Prime while the blue dots fell back toward the planet. It was going to be a massacre. "Are we getting any communications from the battle?" "Yes, Admiral, putting it on speaker now." The command center filled with the sounds of battle, weapon fire, explosions, and desperate voices calling for help in a dozen different languages. Through the chaos, Lisa could hear Velkari voices speaking in their musical language, but the Tone was filled with fear and panic instead of their usual calm superiority. "Admiral," called out Ensign Maria Santos from the communication station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Valkyrie Prime. It's Counselor HFY himself. Put him through." The main screen flickered and showed the face of the Valkyrie leader. HFY looked terrible. His usually perfect silver features were scratched and dirty, and his glowing eyes were dim with exhaustion and fear. Behind him, Lisa could see smoke and flashing emergency lights. "Admiral Grant," HFY said, his musical voice cracking with desperation. "I am speaking to you from the emergency command bunker beneath our capital city. The Crimson Fleet has broken through our orbital defenses. They will reach the planet's surface within hours." Lisa kept her expression neutral. "I'm sorry to hear about your situation, Counselor. How can I help you?" "We formally request immediate military assistance from the Earth Defense Force. The Valkyrie government is prepared to offer full compensation for any costs involved." "Counselor HFY," Lisa said carefully, "I'm afraid that such complex military operations are beyond human capabilities. According to Resolution 2847, humans lack the sophistication necessary for advanced strategic thinking." HFY's face went pale, making his silver skin look almost white. "Admiral, please. This is not the time for past disagreements. Billions of lives are at stake." "I understand the seriousness of the situation. However, Resolution 2847 was passed by the Council, with your full support. The document clearly states that humans are unsuitable for anything but basic combat roles. Surely a situation of this magnitude requires the advanced intelligence of species like the Valkyrie." The transmission was interrupted by a massive explosion that shook HFY's bunker. When the image cleared, part of the ceiling had collapsed behind him. "Admiral," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I formally apologize for Resolution 2847. The Council was wrong. We were wrong. I was wrong. Please, we need your help." Lisa looked around the command center. Every human officer was watching her, waiting to see what she would do. These were good people who had signed up to protect innocent lives. But they were also people who had watched their friends and family die for an alliance that had never respected their sacrifice. "Counselor, I appreciate your apology. However, changing military policy requires approval from Earth's civilian leadership. I'm afraid that will take time." "How much time?" "The matter will need to be reviewed by committees, then sent to Congress for debate, then signed by the President. The process usually takes several months." HFY's expression crumbled completely. "We don't have months, we don't have days. The Crimson Fleet will be landing troops within hours." "I'm sorry, Counselor. Human military doctrine requires proper authorization for all operations. We wouldn't want to exceed our authority and engage in the kind of complex decision-making that is beyond our species' capabilities." The transmission ended with HFY staring at the screen in shocked silence. Lisa turned away from the display and walked to the observation deck overlooking the Martian landscape. Through the dome, she could see human children playing in the carefully maintained parks while their parents worked in the gleaming factories and research centers. "Admiral," Commander Richards approached her carefully. "The fleet commanders are asking for orders. Do we intervene?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "Tony, how many human lives were lost protecting Valkyrie interests over the past 30 years?" "Approximately 15,000, Admiral." "And how many times did the Valkyrie acknowledge those sacrifices?" "Never directly, Admiral. They usually just sent requests for more patrols." Lisa nodded. "Contact Captain Susan Bell. I want her to take a reconnaissance force to the edge of the Valkyrie system. They are to observe only and report back on the situation." "Observe only? Not engage?" "Those are my orders." 3 hours later, Captain Susan Bell's ship, the EDS Defiance, reached the outer edge of the Valkyrie system. The battle was already over. Crimson Fleet vessels orbited Valkyrie Prime like predators around wounded prey, while burning wrecks of Valkyrie ships drifted in space. "Captain," reported her sensor officer, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. It looks like the Crimson Fleet is using some kind of devastating weapon against the cities." Susan watched the tactical display with professional detachment. The Valkyrie defense fleet had been completely destroyed, and enemy landing craft were touching down across the planet's major continents. Whoever commanded the Crimson Fleet was clearly experienced in military operations. Any sign of organized resistance on the planet? Negative, Captain. The planetary communication networks have gone dark. We're not detecting any coordinated military activity. Time to conquest? Based on current patterns, the Crimson Fleet will have complete control of the planet within 6 hours. Susan made her decision. Signal the fleet. All ships are to maintain position at the system's edge. We observe only. Captain, her communications officer spoke up hesitantly. We're receiving scattered transmissions from the planet's surface. Civilian distress calls, request for evacuation, calls for help. Log them all, but do not respond. Ma'am, some of these are from schools and hospitals. Susan's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. Log them and do not respond. Those are my orders. She walked to the bridge's main view screen and activated the long-range cameras. The planet Valkyrie Prime filled the screen, its normally beautiful silver cities now burning under the attack of the Crimson Fleet. Susan had been to those cities many times during her career, delivering supplies and coordinating defense strategies. She knew there were museums there full of Valkyrie art, libraries containing thousands of years of their philosophical writings, and parks where Valkyrie families gathered to watch their children play. Now it was all burning. Captain, her first officer approached quietly. The crew is asking questions. They want to know why we're not helping. Susan kept watching the burning planet. Tell them that according to Resolution 2847, humans are too primitive for complex rescue operations. This situation clearly requires the advanced capabilities of more sophisticated species. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet beeping of instruments and the distant sound of distress calls that would never be answered. The age of Valkyrie arrogance was ending in fire and smoke, while human ships watched from the darkness and did nothing to help. 6 months after the fall of Valkyrie Prime, Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EDS Defiance, looking at a star map that showed how much the galaxy had changed. Red zones marked Crimson Fleet territory, which now covered nearly half of what used to be Council space. Yellow zones showed independent worlds that had broken away from the failing alliance. Green zones represented the growing human-allied cooperative, where 12 different species worked together as equals. The old Council space was gone, divided and conquered by forces that the alien leaders had been too proud to stop. Admiral, called out Commander Ryan Clark from his position at the tactical station. Long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching from the direction of former Council space. Configuration suggests a diplomatic formation rather than military. Jake studied the sensor readings on his personal display. 20 ships flying in tight formation, with no weapons powered and their shields down. It was the universal signal for peaceful intentions. Any identification? Yes, sir. The lead ship is broadcasting Valkyrie diplomatic codes. We're receiving a request for immediate audience with human leadership. Jake was not surprised. Reports from across the galaxy told the same story everywhere. The Crimson Fleet now controlled 4 complete star systems and was moving on a 5th. The Threx trade empire had collapsed completely, with their remaining ships either destroyed or hiding in deep space. The gas-breathing Nefri had retreated to their home system and sealed all jump routes behind them. Put me through to Earth. I need to speak with President Carter. A few minutes later, President Helen Carter's face appeared on Jake's private communication screen. She looked tired but determined, the weight of leading humanity through this crisis showing in the lines around her eyes. Jake, I assume this is about the Valkyrie diplomatic mission heading your way? Yes, ma'am. How do you want me to handle it? Carefully. The situation has changed dramatically since Valkyrie Prime fell. Intelligence reports suggest that Counselor Jek Val is one of only a few thousand Valkyrie survivors. Most of their species is either dead or enslaved by the Crimson Fleet. Jake felt a moment of sadness despite everything that had happened. The Valkyrie had been arrogant and dismissive, but they had also been an ancient species with a rich culture that was now mostly extinct. What are our instructions? Listen to what they have to say. Be polite but firm. Humanity's position hasn't changed. We're willing to work with species that treat us as equals, but we won't go back to being the galaxy's attack dogs. Understood, ma'am. 2 hours later, Jake stood in the diplomatic reception bay of his flagship as the Valkyrie shuttle docked. The airlock cycled open and 3 figures emerged. Jake recognized Counselor HFY immediately, though the once proud leader looked broken and defeated. His silver skin was scarred, one of his arms was in a healing brace, and his glowing eyes were dim with exhaustion and grief. "Admiral Morrison," HFY said, his musical voice barely above a whisper, "thank you for agreeing to see us." "Counselor, I'm sorry for what happened to your world," HFY nodded slowly. 2,400,000,000 Velkari lived on our home world. Current estimates suggest that fewer than 10,000 escaped the planet before it fell. The numbers hit Jake like a physical blow. An entire civilization wiped out in a matter of hours. "Counselor, what can humanity do for you?" "We come to offer humanity something that should have been offered long ago. Complete leadership of what remains of the Galactic Alliance. The surviving Council species formally request that Earth take control of all military and political operations in the fight against the Crimson Fleet." Jake studied the alien leader's face. "And in return?" "Nothing. We ask for nothing in return, except the chance to survive. Humanity has proven that you are the only species capable of effective military leadership. We were fools to think otherwise. Counselor, with respect, this offer comes a bit late. The Council had 30 years to treat humanity as equal partners. Instead, you classified us as a subspecies, suitable only for dying in your service." HFY closed his eyes. "You are right to be angry. Resolution 2847 was a mistake born of fear and prejudice. We were afraid of human military capability, so we tried to limit your role in galactic affairs. We thought we could use your strength without giving you real power. And now we understand that strength without wisdom is useless, but wisdom without strength is meaningless. The Crimson Fleet has shown us what happens when military power is separated from moral leadership." Jake walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the lights of human ships patrolling the borders of their territory. Those ships carried crews from a dozen different species, all working together under human command, not because they had to, but because they chose to. "Counselor, the Human Allied Cooperative already includes 12 species. They joined us not as servants or as masters, but as partners. Each species contributes what they do best, and all species have equal voices in non-military matters. What would be required for the remaining Council species to join this cooperative?" Jake turned back to face the Velkari leader. "First, formal acknowledgement that Resolution 2847 was wrong, and that humanity deserves equal treatment. Second, commitment to the principle that all species are equal partners, regardless of their military capabilities. Third, acceptance that military command in this alliance rests with humanity, not because we're superior, but because we've proven most effective at it. And if we agree to these terms, then we'll fight the Crimson Fleet together. But understand, Counselor, this isn't about restoring the old Council. That system failed because it was based on exploitation rather than cooperation. We're building something new." HFY was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "Of course. When Velkari Prime was under attack, you had ships in the area. Your forces could have intervened." Jake met the alien's gaze steadily. "Yes, we could have. But you chose not to. We chose to follow the guidelines your own council had established. Resolution 2847 stated that humans were too primitive for complex military decisions. Rescuing 2 billion people from an enemy attack seemed like the kind of complex operation that would require the advanced intelligence of species like the Velkari." HFY flinched as if Jake had struck him. "You used our own words against us. I used your own policy exactly as it was written. If you want to blame someone for what happened to Velkari Prime, blame the leaders who decided that human lives were worth less than alien pride. You're right. We brought this on ourselves." Jake's expression softened slightly. "Counselor, I'm not trying to be cruel, but humanity spent 30 years watching our people die while your species treated us like disposable soldiers. We won't make that mistake again. What happens now? Now we fight the real enemy. Intelligence reports suggest that the Crimson Fleet is preparing to attack the Aquari home system next. If you and the other surviving Council species are serious about joining the Human Allied Cooperative, you'll have a chance to prove it." 1 week later, Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the human battleship Thunder, leading the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Around her ship flew vessels from 15 different species, all under unified human command. The Crimson Fleet had expected to find a handful of poorly defended Aquari ships when they arrived at their next target. Instead, they found a coordinated battle group of 300 vessels waiting for them. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Crimson Fleet had been completely destroyed, their commander captured, and their threat to galactic civilization ended forever. As the Allied fleet regrouped after the victory, Jake Morrison received a message from Earth. Construction had begun on New Terra Station, humanity's new diplomatic headquarters. The massive facility would serve as the capital of the Human Allied Cooperative, where all species would meet as equals under human guidance. Above the entrance to the main council chamber, workers were installing a plaque written in the languages of all member species. The inscription read simply, "Never again." The age of human servitude was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And this time, it was built on respect rather than exploitation, on partnership rather than domination. The galaxy had learned what happened when humans turned their backs. Now it would learn what could be accomplished when humans led the way forward.